This is World Tide News, where we navigate the powerful currents shaping our world. Today, we focus on the Iran war. 1 week ago, the United States and Israel launched a war against Iran. The justification was simple. Iran posed an imminent threat. But after 7 days of bombing, retaliation, and rising casualties across the Middle East, a serious question must be asked. Was this war truly necessary? Or was the claim of an imminent threat simply a cover for a war that had already been planned? The Iran war is now 1 week old. 7 days of airstrikes, missiles, and escalating retaliation have pushed the Middle East into one of its most dangerous moments in decades. And after 1 week, we must ask, has the United States achieved its objective? So far, the answer appears to be no. The United States and Iran have been adversaries since the Iranian Revolution of 1979, nearly 47 years ago. There have been sanctions, political hostility, and proxy conflicts. But during all those decades, Iran has never launched a direct military attack on the United States. So how did Iran suddenly become an imminent threat requiring war today? For many observers, the answer seems clear. The claim of imminent danger looks less like a security necessity and more like a justification for a decision that had already been made.
So look, the United States conducted this operation with a very clear goal in mind. I haven't got a chance to see a lot of reporting. I don't understand what the confusion is. Let me explain it to you, and I'll do it once again as clearly as possible. Perhaps you'll report it that way. The United States is conducting an operation to eliminate the threat of Iran's short-range ballistic missiles and the threat posed by their Navy, particularly to naval assets. That is what it is focused on doing right now, and it's doing quite successfully. I'll leave it to the Pentagon and the Department of War to discuss the tactics behind that and the progress that's being made. That is the clear objective of this mission. The second question that's been asked is, why now? Well, there's 2 reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true, because in fact...
A revealing moment came from comments made by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Rubio acknowledged that even while negotiations with Iran were being discussed publicly, preparations for military action were already underway. In other words, diplomacy was being presented to the public while war planning was already in motion. Negotiations were taking place, but the machinery of war was already moving forward. That raises a serious concern. Diplomacy only works when both sides believe negotiations are genuine. When diplomacy happens while war plans are already prepared, trust collapses. For decades after World War II, the world operated under a fragile system of international rules and institutions such as the United Nations. Those institutions were meant to prevent wars and resolve disputes through negotiation. Today, that system not only weakened, but also damaged irreparably. But beyond diplomacy and international law, another question remains. Did the war unfold the way the United States and Israel expected? The answer again appears to be no. Washington and Tel Aviv believed the strikes might trigger internal unrest inside Iran. The expectation was that protests could destabilize the government, but that has not happened. Instead, the bombing continues. Thousands of targets across Iran have reportedly been hit during the first week of the conflict, and the human cost is already severe. According to Iranian authorities, more than 1,300 people have been killed in Iran, including civilians and military personnel. Iranian missile strikes have also killed at least 11 people in Israel. American forces have also suffered losses. Reports indicate 6 U.S. service members have been killed in attacks on American facilities in the region. Each number represents real lives lost, families destroyed, communities shaken. Which brings us to another critical question. Was war truly the only option? The stated objective has been preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. But many analysts argue that diplomacy and international inspections had previously imposed limits on Iran's nuclear activities. Those arrangements were not perfect, but they showed that negotiation could place constraints on nuclear development without war. Military strikes may destroy buildings, but they do not erase scientific knowledge. In many cases, military attacks push nations to pursue nuclear capabilities even more aggressively for deterrence. Iran is a country of nearly 90 million people. Airstrikes alone cannot control a nation of that size, and controlling such a country would require something far more dangerous: boots on the ground. History offers clear warnings. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan became long and costly conflicts lasting decades. Libya and Syria produced instability that still affects the region today. Those lessons should not be forgotten. Which brings us to the most important question: what is the end game? If the bombing continues and the Iranian government remains in power, this conflict could become a prolonged regional war. If it spreads further, the consequences could destabilize the entire Middle East. Wars are far easier to begin than they are to end. And as the second week of this conflict begins, the world is watching closely. One question remains unanswered: how does this end? This is World Tide News. Subscribe, like, and share to catch the next coverage. Thank you for watching.